Good evening and welcome to Mets 360 here on Riverside. I'm your host, Brian Jura, and I'm very pleased to bring back to the show a longtime writer for the site, Charlie Hangley. Charlie, thanks so much for joining me again.
My pleasure, Brian.
All right, well,
Always.
let's get right to it. I'm pumped about the Mets winning 2 of 3 from the Yankees. But I want to ask you, how disappointing was it to lose the finale? And a follow up to that, and why can't the Mets win on Sundays?
Well, I mean, the Mets have had existential questions like that throughout their history. Let's go back to 1985 when Doc Gooden was winning every time he put on his spikes, but couldn't win during the day.
I'm
25 and
sorry,
5 and all 25 and 5 and all 5 losses were in the daytime.
I'm sitting here nodding, which you can't see. We have this meme, I guess you'd call it, that we put up when the Mets lose on Sundays, and it's a happy Sunday, loser. And I'm getting tired of seeing it.
Well, and again, it's a historical thing. They've always had, I mean, not always, but see, the thing is when people ask for predictions and they say, like, well, this week coming up, what would you be happy with? And I usually go, okay, for a week with an off day, 4-2, because I never want to predict a sweep. A sweep is always a pleasant surprise. Unlike fans of another team, which shall go nameless, which expect to go 162 and up. Um, so and there was a lot of chatter a couple of years ago about how come they can't ever get a sweep? They can't finish it off. They can't do this. They can't do like you don't expect it. A
Every
sweep is a
now and
luxury.
then.
Now and then, sure, and except for the stinker, the first game against Milwaukee, they could have had it there too. But it's not something that well, I mean, it's what you aim for, but it's not something that you take for granted or expect in my world.
All right, well, tell me about your feelings about the just concluded Subway Series. What are your takeaways?
Very happy that the offense has returned. Um, Tim Britton in The Athletic, he does a kind of I'll call it a pre-cap of the week
Hmm.
coming up, where he basically critiques whatever happened over the weekend and then gets everybody prepped for the two opponents upcoming. And today his piece was about how the top five really woke up in these past two series against Milwaukee and against the Yankees. And if that can keep going now, again, going back to Mets history, whenever they're on a hot streak, or even in some of their terrible years when they've been played well running up to the All Star break seems to, and coming out of it, they have a hard time, getting their legs back under them. It always takes a week or so till they get good again. So hopefully that's not the case here. They have two, I'll say, relatively soft opponents this week in Baltimore and Kansas City. So I think they should be, again, I'm going to say 4-2 in each series, for each series, but I'm real gratified to see the top five start breathing again, and keeping my fingers crossed for the pitching.
All right, well, you mentioned the All-Star team, so let's talk about that for a bit. The Mets got 3 players on the All-Star team, which is very nice, but should we be upset that neither Juan Soto nor Kodai Senga made it, or do you think it's just a numbers game?
Well, I would have been surprised if they'd have named Senga because he's still on the injured list, technically. I mean, he's supposed to be coming off on Friday, but he's still hurt. So I can get where, because I think that as far as the starting pitchers go, the manager does that, right? Dave Roberts would have done that. So
Yeah, that was certainly the case in the past. I think it's conjunction with MLB headquarters now too.
yeah, and I know there's a player poll that has some bearing on it as well. I don't know if they're involved with starting pitching. I know they are with the bench, but I don't know if they're involved with the starting pitching. So I can get Senga not being there. As far as Soto goes, to me, it seems a little petty. I can't say I'm upset because, well, he got off to a good start for everybody else. Everybody expected him, as I said in the last time I talked to you about this, everybody expected him to hit 70 home runs the first week. So as far as him not getting it, I think it's a little bit of a backlash from the league office about the contract. There's nothing that says he won't be added to the squad if somebody begs off, and somebody inevitably does. A Corbin Carroll or a Tatis Jr. or somebody like that. Which, by the way, Soto has better stats than both of those two guys, but it's a quibble. I think I fully expect him before the end of the week to be named to the team. So I'm not terribly upset about it.
Well, I guess I'm a little upset about Senga because Yeah, he's on the IL, but like you mentioned, he's expected back this week. And even if he wasn't expected back, that's the type of thing where he should have made the team and then they used an injury replacement to
Hmm.
fill out the roster. The guy's got a 1.47 ERA. How do you leave somebody off who's 7-3 with a 1.47 ERA for one of the top five teams in the league?
Yeah. No, no, it's a
I'm a little
valid
annoyed.
point. Valid point. But you gotta again keep in mind, you got to get somebody from the Rockies. You got to get somebody from the Nationals. You got to get somebody from the Marlins. You know,
I haven't looked at it in detail, but I'm pretty sure that the guy that they got from the Rockies was a catcher. Not sure what the Nationals had to have been James Wood. So that's an outfielder. And what was the third team that you mentioned? The Marlins.
Miami. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't off the top of my head, I don't know who the Marlins representative is, but
And and just as an aside to that, that's a funny thing too, because I still can't wrap my head around the fact that the Marlins are ahead of the Braves right now.
ha 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 ha. What's the Simpsons mean where Nelson goes that
Exactly.
that's the noise I hear in my head anytime I look in the standings and see that. And just think what it would be like if we played them earlier in the year when our rotation was a little healthier than it is now. Instead of going 2-5, we easily could have gone 5-2 against them. So
Easy. Well, we should have gone. We at least should have gone 3-4 because they totally choked the first game.
yeah, yeah.
It should have been at least 3-4.
Yeah. So as long as we're talking about the Braves, I believe they are 11 games under 500 right now.
Yeah, it's a shame.
Yeah, yeah. Tears flowing everywhere.
That's a
But
shame.
but we have seen this team come back from what seemed like insurmountable deficits in the past. I guess I'm thinking specifically 2021. So is it too soon to declare them dead?
I think it is. I think if they stay in this neighborhood for another month, then we can, start putting the nails in. But I agree, this team is not. It's a little bit like the Yankees of the '90s. They're not dead until the last shovelful of dirt goes on. So
So a couple of weeks ago, I had baseball historian and Braves fan Dan Schlossberg on. And during the crazy prediction segment, he said that the Braves were going to make the playoffs. And, part of me was going, yeah, you're insane. And another part of me was going, as a Mets fan, I'm kind of scared. So I want with all of my heart to declare them dead. Don't know if I can do it though.
like I said, them and the Yankees, damn vampires, man.
All right. Well, screw the Braves. Let's go back talking about the Mets. Um, we it certainly looks like right at this second, assuming nobody drops dead, which I guess we can't rule out. But in the second half, the Mets appeared ready to have Senga and Mania and Peterson and Holmes and McGill as their starting rotation. Frankie Montas in there as well, and Blackburn and the rookies in reserve. So is that enough?
I'm thinking it should be. It should be. But as we've said several times, we're Mets fans. We get hung up on should, and we get tripped up. So the pessimistic part of me, the true orange and blue part of me, says no, and I would very much like to see Mr. Stearns make some sort of splashy move on the starting pitching front in the next 2 weeks or so. Again, going back to the Athletic, I can't remember whether it was Tim Britton or Will Salmon who wrote that the Mets shouldn't even wait for the deadline. They got to start moving now to get, I guess, kind of ramp up momentum for the second half and try and get a jump on the market before anybody of any quality is dealt.
To me, that sounds like something that sounds great in theory, but the reality is who's ready to trade someone right now and isn't going to go and turn around and shop your offer to somebody else. Obviously the Marlins are the first team to jump in mind with Alcantara, but
Right.
if the Mets offered four young guys slash prospects for Alcantara, Miami's going to turn around and talk to three other teams and say, hey, we've been offered this by the Mets. And not that that's not going to happen in July too, but there's so much more time for somebody to come up with the offer now. I mean, I I just don't see a major deal happening right now unless the Mets offer is so out of the water, blows everyone else away type of thing, and do we want them to make that, especially for someone who hasn't been overwhelming?
Yeah, well, for Alcantara specifically, yeah. But there was talk not long ago, if Texas continues to flounder, having a little reunion with somebody who used to have very long hair.
Would you pick up that contract?
If anybody can, it's us.
Well, yeah, yeah, and that's certainly a nice thing to have in our back pocket. But if you're Texas, and I haven't looked specifically at how far out they are, but their hitting has been worse than ours. So they may be motivated to sell. They may be amenable to getting out from under DeGrom's contract, but they're also going to want something. So
Yeah.
what are you going to give them plus taking on that contract that's going to work? Personally, I think that I would love to see DeGrom back on the Mets, but I don't see the Rangers trading him right.
Well, and especially not on the heels of another All-Star now.
Maybe if they fall on hard times between now and the trade deadline, maybe, but I don't see that being a deal that's made now. And I'm assuming DeGrom has a no trade clause. And I think it's entirely possible he goes, been there, done that, don't want to do it again.
Well, I mean, it seemed like everybody was hot for it a couple of weeks ago. I mean, Gary Cohen was talking about it on the air, fairly openly.
Yeah,
He even said to I forget whether it was Hernandez or Darling, because I think it was only one of them in the booth with him. He was like, "Could you imagine if that happened?" It was bordering on tampering.
I always wonder how much influences the broadcast crew is under. Do they have specific orders from above? You guys should talk about this. Throw it at the flagpole, see what happens. Or the flip side of that, don't you dare talk about XYZ. So
Well, I mean, I'm sure there's a little bit of. I really think that the SNY booth has a lot more leeway than most others, and that's why they get lauded for being the best one around. Because I don't think they're taking too many orders from above, except in the case of
Steve Gelbs,
no. Well, I don't
they
mean
have to
that. I
be
mean
nice to Gelbs. Is that what you're saying?
no, no, no. I mean what I mean is if they run into another, say, Wilmer Flores situation from 2015. It's like, okay, we know this trade has happened. We know he's been moved, but we can't say anything because it's not official yet. And then it could be construed as tampering.
Can broadcasters tamper?
If well, it could be considered that, considering they're employees of the team and not the network.
Yeah, I
You
don't know
know,
the answer. I don't know that. Anyway, let me ask you another question. I'm a fan, but I certainly see the weaknesses, the shortcomings in his games. So I want to know, what are your thoughts on the play of Ronnie Mauricio?
I think he's still growing. I think he's got some growing up to do. I'm not going to say he's Jordani Valbestein or Lastings Millage, but I think he's got to mature a little bit more. I think he can do it on the major league roster just on the basis because his talent is there. It's impossible to ignore. But I think he's got to get his head a little bit more in the game, especially on defense.
You mean you
That
didn't
play the
like
other day
the
where that play
barehanded
the other
catch?
day when he started running before he knew what a ball was, that was a big no-no. I mean, I get it, but you gotta make sure before you take your foot off the base.
I don't. I hear what you're saying, and it's not that I disagree, but I think on that particular play, there was really nothing that was going to prevent that from being a double play. I mean, that was just
No,
the
I'm
ball
talking
was hit.
I'm talking about I'm talking about when the ball, it was the grounder to short, the grounder to Chisholm, and he threw it high to second, and whoever the shortstop was off the bag, and Mauricio was safe, but he thought the ball had gone into the outfield, and he started running to third, and he got tagged right there. It was almost like a hidden ball trick.
Yeah, that must have been Volpe.
Yeah, yeah,
Well, the
yeah. I think
ball.
it was Volpe made the bad throw. I think it was Volpe made the bad throw, and I think it was maybe LeMahieu who made the tag. But that's the play I'm talking about, where he thought it had gone into the outfield and started running to third, and then got tagged. 3 feet from second.
Gotcha. Well, I like how the ball jumps off of his bat. I think that there are players out there that they have that lightning in their wrists, and I think Mauricio is one of them. And he certainly could afford to take those same classes that Pete Alonso needs to take about how to lay off breaking balls that are out of the strike zone. But when he makes contact, good things happen.
Man, is he put together? You know, you look at him. I mean, as a physical specimen, he's. I mean, he's not as tall, obviously, but he's like Strawberry that way. You know, or Marte. You know, he's built solid. You know, I mean, he looks like an athlete. Like if he was again, if he was a little taller and maybe a little beefier, he could be a tight end.
So where do you think he's best served playing defensively? Wow, on a team that employs Mark Vientos, that seems
Yeah, Vientos will make you the spectacular play sometimes, but I don't trust Mauricio yet. Again,
wow.
I don't think his head is there yet. I think he's still feeling his way, and I think he's still really young.
You are a tough man to please, Mr. Hangley. All right, well let's take that tough edge that you have, and let's shine the spotlight on Francisco Alvarez. The Mets sent him down. Maybe it was because of his offense, maybe because of his defense, maybe both. I don't know. But how do you think the Mets should handle him going forward?
I think that I don't know how to end. I really do. But as I've said before, you know, as I've written and you and I have discussed, you know, he's a career backup for a reason. And I'm sorry, Hayden Senger isn't, you know, I mean, again, he's a great story, what with the Whole Foods and everything. But, you know, that's kind of all he is because I don't think he can hit his way out of a paper bag. So, and I think, you know, from the reports I've seen, Alvarez is starting to come around in Syracuse. I think he's starting to hit. I was discouraged right away when in his first game back, he hit into a double play and then was removed from the game right away. I don't know what that was about, but since then, it seems he's been, you know, knocking the leather off the ball. So I've got a feeling it's going to come to a point where they can't keep him down anymore. Similar to the way it was with Mauricio a few weeks ago. They're not going to be able to justify it. Certainly not for the sake of Hayden Sanger. So I think we'll see him back probably within a week or two after the break, depending on any moves that get made between now and then.
Well, it's going to be a pretty straightforward Alvarez for Senger, unless somehow Torrens gets hurt. Given everything else that's gone on this season, I guess we can't rule that out. But I guess I'm a little more aggressive than you on the Alvarez front. I mean, I think they needed to throw some cold water on him, and the demotion to AAA certainly. Hey, that's your bird.
It is. He's
Certainly,
not happy. I don't know why.
I'll tell him I said hi. Give him a cracker. But I think that they threw the cold water on him. Certainly, he's hitting home runs down there. I haven't heard one thing about his defense, and I thought maybe his defense was a little slacking off in the majors before the demotion. So I'm hopeful that they're pleased with what he's doing defensively as well as with the home runs that he's hitting.
No, I agree. And for whatever reason, it was his defense was trending downward before he himself went downward. Um, so hopefully he's, you know, I'm with you though. I haven't heard anything one way or the other as far as his defense is at Syracuse. But I mean, it's a bat like that at that position, you can't keep him down there.
So instead of talking about a guy who's either on the cusp of the majors or is going to be in the minors for a few more weeks, let's talk about one of the lineup stalwarts, and that's Brandon Nimmo. Now he signed a very long contract. I think it was 8-year deal a couple years ago. And certainly at the end of last year and the beginning of this year, it was not looking good because he was really scuffling. But now he's turned it on. So how are you feeling about the long term contract for Nimmo now?
I liked it from word one. I really did. I thought he was absolutely worth it. I was at the time when he was, you know, about to test the waters. I was scared he'd lose him, but I was scared we'd lose him, I should say. But now it appears. I mean, he's going to be the next version of David Wright. He's going to be a career Met, and that makes me happy. That makes me happy. And you know, he's number 2 or 3 in that clubhouse behind Lindor and arguably Alonso in the leadership department. You know, I mean, he is the longest tenured Met. And if you ever thought I would say that, you know, in 2017, you know, so I'm pleased with what he's doing. I think he is going to be solid for the rest of the length of it. He's certainly not going to be Rafael Devers. So
So it's a long term deal, but I think what gets lost a little bit in it is that the average annual value is just a hair over 20 million per season. And if you're a believer in the dollars to WAR calculation, I mean that's a 2.5 WAR player, and it's not like people are saying, oh, they should pay Alonso $40 million a year, and the guy has never been a 5 WAR player, and Nimmo has. So I think it's a lot of years, and you never know how a player is going to age. But after last year, and he was still outperformed his contract, but it certainly looked like he was on the downward slope. And it just doesn't look that way anymore, at least to me. I feel very good with where he's at and how he's hitting and how he's playing overall. I'm biased. I admit it. Nimmo's probably my favorite player, but I don't think anyone can objectively look at what he's doing right now and say, we got to have this guy for 5 more years.
Right, right. I'm with you. I'm with you there. Just keep him around as long as you can.
All right, well, let's see if we can generate some controversy. So it's crazy prediction time.
Crazy prediction.
I'm going to give you mine. I'm going to ask you to comment on it, and then we'll flip roles where you give me a crazy prediction and I'll comment on it. Are you ready?
Go for it.
All right, we were talking earlier about Francisco Alvarez. He's got 3 home runs in the majors here in 2025. My crazy prediction is that he finishes with 20 home runs in the majors this year. So tell me, how crazy is that?
I think that's feasible.
But
I
you're,
think it's
you're
feasible.
saying 2 weeks after the All-Star game, he's not going to come up. So that's essentially July is over at that point. So it's August and September. So he's going to hit 10 home runs in each of those months.
Well, yeah, that is kind of crazy, actually.
Yeah,
Now that
I knew I could. I knew I could wrangle a crazy out of you. All right, well, good,
that
good.
is a little bit off the edge.
I keep making these predictions that I think are crazy, and the guest goes, "No, I don't see that's crazy at all." And it's like, "Geez, Louise, what do I got to do? What's the Trump line? I could shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue." All right,
Don't go there, please. Anyway,
I apologize. I should not have said that.
no problem. No
Anyway, all right,
problem.
okay. So give me your crazy prediction.
Prediction. Mark Vientos turns it around.
I don't even need to hear anymore. Crazy. Crazy. It's not happening. Crazy. He's losing playing time to Mauricio and Beatty and Jesse Winker and somebody maybe not even on the team.
I still say he turns it around.
So,
Still say he ends up. I still say he ends up with
and I don't know off the top of my head how many homers he has now, but I'm gonna say
7. I want
I'm
to say
gonna say
7, something like
okay.
that.
All right. I say crazy. I think that he was starting to play better before he went on the IL. Was certainly trending in the right direction from the miserable start that he got off to. But it's almost like he's back to square one now and has to refine things. And who knows, maybe he finds it again in this next week. And then what happens? You're off 4 or 5 days for the All-Star break. So I think it's a tough setup for Vientos. I think there's at least some questions about his playing time because we know he's not a great fielding third baseman, and they're certainly going to prefer to play Beatty and probably Mauricio at the hot corner over him. What happens when Jesse Winker comes back? Is he going to be the predominant DH? If so, that cuts off some playing time. So I think it's a tough road ahead for Vientos. I'm pulling for him, but I'm afraid I'm going to have to label you crazy.
Call me crazy.
But that's good. That's what we want. We both gave crazy predictions. That's how it should
Exactly.
be. None of this
And it's
safe.
funny. And it's funny that we both gave crazy predictions about 2 kids that we had put a lot of stock in and a lot of money on back in 22 and 23.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the whole thing was the baby Mets. The baby Mets, they were going to lead us to the promised land. And in a way, it kind of makes me think a little bit about Generation K. We
Yes.
had so much hope for them. Would they have been better if they were able to stay healthy? I'd like to think so, but that's the optimist in me. And if somebody wanted to call me naive, I wouldn't argue much. All right. Well, let's get back to you and I arguing.
Okay.
We mentioned earlier about a good week, 4-2, winning series, and the Mets did just that against the Brewers and the Yankees, 2 pretty good teams. So after having done that, having won the series, do you think that means that the Mets are out of their slump?
I sure hope so. Let's see. I mean, it's not exactly going to be a tough test in Baltimore and Kansas City, but if they go better than 4-2 over the next week, I will say yes. If they pull a Pittsburgh, then I'm going to be nervous.
I think we should ban "Pull of Pittsburgh" from our lexicon. That never happened. There's no proof to the contrary. The Mets had 3 rainouts as far as I'm concerned. That Pittsburgh series never happened. God, that was some ugly baseball. But, that points out to the question about whether the Mets are out of the slump. They had such terrible pitching in that series, and we're certainly hopeful that Senga and Manaya are going to come and lead the cavalry, but we don't know that yet. We're hopeful, but hope's not worth a whole lot on the open market.
And I will say this: I was pleasantly surprised by Montas the other day against the Yankees.
He seems like he's got value. At one point, I was wondering if he was going to best help the club out of the bullpen,
Yeah.
and maybe that happens in the postseason when you shorten your rotation some. But we got a couple of months before we know that for sure. But he's shown some signs. I think it's safe to say that.
Yep. Yep.
All right. Well, I think we got time for one more question here, and
Okay.
we're talking about, are they out of their slump? Are we concerned? So, what section of the team are you most concerned about? Are you most concerned about the starters or the relievers or the hitters?
None of the above, actually. I'm concerned about the defense. Their defensive metrics are, and they have been all year, even in the good times, even before the celebrated slump of June 25. Their defensive metrics have been toward the bottom of the majors all year, and that's not going to play come October. They're going to have to. They're not going to be able to out hit their mistakes, and they're not going to be able to. They won't be able to afford the way the starting pitching is. They certainly won't be able to afford giving anybody extra outs. Not the Dodgers, not the Phillies, not the Cubs, whoever it is they end up playing, they cannot give away outs, and they've given away far too many.
It's hard to argue that they haven't given away outs, but when you try to be a realist and look at it, they're locked in an awful lot of positions. They're going to play Alonso at first, even though he's got some major throwing questions. Vientos is going to see some time at third, and he's got some fielding and throwing questions. Soto is no threat to win a Gold Glove out in right field. There's some positions on there that make you worried. But on the flip side of that, I think Lindor had some unlikely error issues, and I feel good that he's going to return to being a quality fielder. I think McNeil is a lot better at second base than people give him credit for. Taylor, for whatever reason, can't hit this year, but he's a pretty good defensive player. I think Nimmo gets the job done in left field. I think the catchers are okay. So, I mean, it's a mixed bag, and I think that there's at least the possibility of improving some in the late innings of close games. And that doesn't do you any good if some guy makes a 3-run error in the second inning. I mean, I get it, but I do think it can be neutralized somewhat.
But I mean, I'm confident in the hitting. I think the pitching will be just enough. I think that, and in that vein, it's similar to 2006. Which was the rare Met squad that was built around offense, and pitching was kind of pieced together. I mean, when you were relying on an old Tom Glavine and Steve Traxel, to be your aces, and Mike Pelfrey at the end of the year, we're in better shape this year than we were then.
Assuming that the offense continues to do what they've done the last week or so.
Right, right.
To me, my biggest worry is the eighth inning. I had high hopes that Daniel Nunez was going to come back and be the guy that he was for the Mets last year, but that seems like it's off the table now. I'm okay with Stanek and Garrett. I'd much rather see them in the sixth and seventh rather than the seventh and the eighth. So I'd like to see them get that eighth inning guy, someone who you feel okay about if Diaz has gone back to back days, somebody that he could come in and close, and you wouldn't be biting your fingernails in a 1-run game in the ninth inning.
Well, I have a sneaky feeling that that's going to be top priority come July 30th.
Yeah, and I don't know who that guy is. Maybe it's David Bednar. Maybe it's someone better than that. I don't know who it is, but that's where I hope they fortify right now.
Agreed. Agreed.
All right. Well, any last parting thoughts?
No, just go get them in Baltimore and KC, man.
I want to say that that was the same 2 teams that they played after the great sell-off in 2023, when the team was just stunned. I'm pretty sure they got swept by the Royals, and they may have got swept by the Orioles too. So I'm a little a little bit on edge, but certainly 4-2 would do a lot to ease my mind.
Well, I think, especially in terms of the Orioles, I'm not sure about KC, but in terms of Baltimore, completely different team. Because in 23, they were on the rise. Everybody was saying, they had this great farm system. They're going to be good for the next 15 years because, they had people like Adley Rutschman coming up and, Gunnar Henderson and all of this. It's come to this point now, and everyone's scratching their heads wondering what happened to all of these guys.
Well, I think Rutschman is hurt right now, isn't he?
I think so.
And
No, I
and
think so.
then
But he
the
wasn't doing well before he got hurt.
right, right. But I think that the Orioles' main problem is that starting pitching is a disaster.
Losing Corbin Burns hurt him far more than they had counted on.
Than they cared to admit. Right. All right. Well, Charlie, thanks so much for joining me. Hopefully, we enjoy this next week and can kick back and enjoy the NL winning the All Star game.
And hey, no Pete in the home run derby. What are we going to do there?
2 years too late, but better late than never. All right. Well, thanks everyone for tuning in, and we'll catch you again next week. Good night, everyone.